2C. Paisley. It had only been a few days at Grandfather's, but it felt like an eternity. Alira and I would spend the days indoors with Cadence, since she was too young to be out in the sunlight. It was difficult at first to look up to Alira as one usually does to an older sibling. However, she had certainly found some maturity since the baby came, and Alira had been forced into her new status. As the lady of the house, she was commonly consulted on our behalf. It was sometimes difficult to find a spare moment of her time, which I so desperately needed. Now that Mother was gone, she was the only one I could speak to about womanly matters. I supposed that the servants of the house would have the knowledge I sought, but I just couldn't bring myself to ask. Finally, a moment arrived where I could approach Alira on the matter. As we readied ourselves for the evening, combing our hair and making our clothes ready for tomorrow, I breached the subject. Alira, I know you must be weary of the day, what with Cadence and preparing to start classes with tutors, but I braced myself to submit to my pride. I wonder, could you teach me about womanhood? She turned to me with the slightest of smiles amid her tired features. Have you started your courses? Is this why you bring it up? My courses came upon me the night Cadence was born, I replied, recalling that Alira was not privy to knowing that night with all that had occurred. 10 days? You have been coursing for 10 days and haven't told me yet? What have you to even ask me about at this point that you do not know? Well, when does it end? I've spent all the cloth I had available and have run out. Run out? Do you mean you have not been washing them? Paisley, you must not dispose of your cloths, or surely you will make even Grandfather poor in time. Your courses will last about 7 days, given 1 to 3 days, and then you will repeat the process again next month. The pain will come and go, so make sure to use the hot rags when difficult. The rest, I'm afraid, you will need to consult Grandfather or one of the serving maidens about if Mother hasn't told you about becoming with child. Welcome to womanhood, Paisley. Though I must be off to bed, it is an early morning for both of us starting back with schooling. I wasn't looking forward to school yet. It had been a tumultuous 10 days, and I didn't feel ready to slide back into the mundane world just yet. At least I could take comfort in knowing that my courses would be over tomorrow. I finished up my bedtime routine and set off towards my room. Just off the corner of the eye, I would catch a glimmer, though, which led me to the end of the hall to a dead end. I could hear some of the serving women talking, and happened to catch Alira's name, so I stopped to listen. Griella, a slight young servant with dark brown curls and a dusky pink dress, was situated in the far side of the room, folding laundry with Marin. Marin, who was at least 3 times Griella's senior, was resting in a corner chair and wearing a brown and green floral dress. Her blonde hair was partially swept through with grays and loosely pulled back to the nape in a ponytail. Alira especially will have a difficult time, I imagine. She looks just like her mother, Marin stated. Her love of herb lore has already attracted the master's interest and gotten under his skin. I do believe those girls will soften his rugged heart and bring happiness back to this house that we haven't seen since Mistress Cadence lived here. I don't see what you mean. Mr. Ogg said nigh a word on the matter. He can barely look at the girls. Whatever happened to him to put him against his own grandchildren? Griella asked. Oh dear. It was about 15 years ago when Mistress Cadence and her father had their falling out. When she and that Alastair boy got together. Eldridge, or Mr. Ogg that is, swore them off because he wanted nothing to do with the magical folk. Alastair was a magus. Was a magus? Griella inquired. What became of him? Why does Mr. Ogg dislike the magic folk? Mrs. Norfolk said that Mr. Gallons was lost to sea on the ship that took Prince Garrett some years back. If you remember, we only just found out when the master was approached about the girls. Master Og had the misfortune of falling in love with a fairy. A splendid man was he, if you could imagine, handsome as well as kind. But as the fairy folk do, his mistress came and went, leaving him with child, never to return. Mr. Og was never the same after that. His loneliness turned from heartache to loathing as the years passed, and when Cadence ran off with the Magus, he vowed he would never speak to her and hers again. But I see it. He sits in his study now with a fresh batch of dandelion tea from Alira's pickings. Master Og showed Mistress Cadence herb lore when she was young. There was always dandelion tea and wine until the day she left. However, he hasn't had a drop until tonight. I imagine these girls are exactly what the old grouch needs, and hopefully he will be what they need as well, Marin finished. As Griella finished with her laundry and turned towards the door, I slipped away back to my room. I contemplated what I had heard, ready to discuss with Alira. It would have to wait until after school tomorrow, I supposed.